I use this all the time for my students, so I'm pretty unfortunately used to Zoom and how it works. So
Oh yeah. No, I get you. Yeah, so I'm gonna just say it again. I really appreciate the time. I just started recording right now, so I wanted to let you know appreciate you coming on and being with me today. You are my first ever guest, so I'm very excited for this. Um, and I mean, yeah. So I mean, let's get down to it. I think I shared the topics with you before, so you're probably going to be as ready as you can be when
yep.
doing this. But um, basically, what I probably am going to do to start is so you this this guy. Do you mind if I say your name and everything?
Yeah, go
Or
ahead. Yeah, that's fine.
okay, so this Anthony Lynn or Tony Lyen. I'm sorry,
There you
Tony
go.
Lyen. Tony Lyen is a part of the SSFFL league. He joined, I think it was 2 years ago or three
This
years ago.
is third. Yeah, this is my third season. Yeah.
Okay, so this was his third season that he participated in the league. Again, this league has been around since 2009, so we have admitted a couple new people as of late. Um, there might be a couple changes happening this year. We're working on some good stuff. Um, Again, I am the new commissioner of this league. I took over for Bobby Mason, who is the owner of Cardinal FC. It remains unknown whether he's coming back or not. But basically, I just wanted to introduce Anthony because uh, we want to talk about the new rules that I'm actually going to be trying to implement for next season. I have a form that is on the website that I'm going to share with you right now. So basically, this form is, you can see my screen, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So this form is the new rules form. So basically, the website is up and running right now. It's not completely where I want it to be, but it's still somewhat decent. This is the website here. It's through Google. So this is the homepage. So we have the purpose of the league, the pictures of the trophy, and Coors Light sponsorship.
Wow.
We have this little picture here that's kind of got to do with fantasy football championships. And anyways, so we're going to be like kind of referring to this website here and then during this podcast. But to start things off, I want to go to media and go to forums. And in here, we have the questionnaire for guests. So I'm just going to click on it here. So basically, we'll go through this and I'll just select the answers for you and submit it. So the first question says, do you know what SSFL stands for?
And you want me to answer that?
Yes, I do.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do know what SSFFL stands for.
Okay, you
Do you
do.
want,
So
do you want me to prove it?
yes, I do. What does it stand for?
Southside Fantasy Football League.
Yes,
I
it
believe.
does. Yep, that is correct. All right, and then, well, actually, I don't know if it's gonna let me actually do this myself. So when you get the chance, just go onto the website if you can now or whenever you want, and
Sure.
just fill out this form. But I'm just gonna continue on with these questions for now. And then it says, what year did you join fantasy football? So this question is kind of not specific, but it's basically asking just when you started playing fantasy football in general, not just when you joined the SSFL league.
Oh man, so that would have been. Oh man, that was probably the year before I joined the SSFFL. So that would have been 21, 29. So 2019 was my first official season. So 2018, I got really late into the fantasy football scene. So I kind of got introduced to it late. So I think 2018 was the year I started playing all around in my other friends league, but 2019 was the year I joined this league.
Okay. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think you actually joined our league in 2018, if I'm not mistaken, and so that means that 2017 might have been your first
So that might have
league.
been 2017. I think you're right. Yeah, because
Well,
yeah, you're
mhm.
right.
let's refer back to the website here. So we have league history.
Boy.
This is another cool thing about this website that I like, that I developed. First of all, I want to give credit when credit is due. Bobby Mason actually did work on 2009 until 2015. So all of these stats are from him. I took this right off the Facebook page that we had, that we no longer post on anymore, but I am going to try to start using that once again for those of you that do have Facebook. And then basically, let's see. So we scroll down to 2018. So if we go to 2018 here, you can see Springfield Wildcats right there. So
wow, man.
So you started in 2018 in the SSFL league. So
wow, and I've been
right
a garbage team ever since. This is great to look back on too. This is good to know.
Oh, and then the little stat here says, like, in the beginning, the special draft located at Tom's Tap. So that was at Tom's Tap that year on the south side of Chicago.
That's right.
And the league added Springfield Wildcats, who took the place of Joe, which was Grease Lightning that year. And then obviously Joe, you know, joined the next year when Detroit Lions, which was Dan's team, you know, they got out of the league, and then Joe took their place. But yeah, 2018 was the first year that you were in there. So
look at that.
All right. And then the next question, how many leagues do you currently play in?
So I currently am in the SSFFL, and I'm also in my best friend Frank. He hosts a league not for money, and I appreciate that league more simply because those people don't seem to know what they're doing as much as our league does. So it's much more difficult in our league. So I am in two leagues at the same time. That's I'm balancing between those two.
Yeah, it's tough, man. Like, I'm in another league too, and these guys in the other league that I'm in, they really do pay attention a lot too in there. Like, there's actually, well, there was 12 of us last year, but this year it was only 10. But this league was crazy this year because we added a second flex spot. So we had 2 flex positions, and it was nuts. Like, the scoring was ridiculous just from adding that one flex position. And I was losing games by like 5-6 points, and because I started the wrong person, like, you know, and left the other guy on my bench. So it was nuts. And I made the playoffs, but I got knocked down in the first round. But
yeah,
it's fun though. It's, you know, fun, and sometimes it could be addicting, but it's a good hobby to have, in my opinion. So the next question says, what is the name of the most creative fantasy football team that you had or that you currently have, and where did the inspiration come from?
So for me, that would be I only ever use the same name for my leagues so I can keep them consistent. And actually one year I forgot what I did. It was something around Tom Brady. I don't remember. It was one of those dumb nicknames you just find on a blog online. But I've only ever used Springfield Wildcats, and the reason is because The Simpsons is one of my favorite shows of all time. So I just use that as a reference there. Yeah.
Right. And then if we go back to the league history here, if you scroll all the way down, you can see the logos too. Now, some of these logos aren't accurate because people will not send me their actual logo, and I can't input something that I don't have. But I think I do have yours in there though. So
you do have mine. Yeah, you do have one of my many incarnations for the
so there you go.
Wildcats.
Established 2018 right there.
Man, this is interesting.
Yeah. And then all right. So the next question says, what is your favorite NFL team, your favorite player, and your favorite color?
Well, despite the fact that they constantly leave me disappointed and angry, I'm gonna just have to continue to say the Chicago Bears. I don't understand how people are fans of teams outside of the city they live in unless they like have family that grew up out of there. Like I just have never been able to fathom that. Like I have a problem too with college football, but that's my own personal rant. Is that like when people are like, "Oh man, I really hope like Auburn does really good in this game," and I'm like, you went to Lewis University in Romeoville? Why are you cheering for this random college team? So I'll always be the Chicago Bears, even though they're constantly disappointing. Did you hear, speaking of which, I don't know if you plan on breaking news, but the Chicago Bears, Chuck Pagano is retiring. I'm sure you saw.
Yeah, I actually saw it through one of the group messages that one of our fellow team co-players or whatever texted and posted. But that's crazy. I mean, but in all honesty, like the way that the season has gone for them, they were probably going to fire him anyway. So I really didn't see him making it back to next year. So he probably did what was best for himself. That way he can get a job easier somewhere else.
True.
That's just the way I look at it. But this year though, man, their defense just did not show up. They were nowhere to be found. Like they added Quinn, and it's like they should have gotten better, but they regressed so much. Yeah. And I don't know if it's because of the guys getting older, or I don't know if it was because of the coaching. But it just did not seem like they had it this year on defense at all.
No, they were all over the place.
It was weird.
And then favorite NFL player, I don't know. That's tough for me. I'm a big defender of a lot of I like Deshaun Watson, and I don't know why I like Deshaun Watson so much. I have no reason to like him the way that I do.
Yeah.
I like Patrick Mahomes. He's gonna get to that point where people are not gonna like him because of how good he is, and I'm fine with that, because if you're just really talented, and he seems like a good dude, and that's I don't know. I understand why people don't like certain athletes, but with a guy like Patrick Mahomes, he seems like a good guy. He plays well. He does a lot for the community. I don't know. I think he's the kind of, and I guess as a teacher, it's good because I want at least athletes where my students see him and they're like, no, he's not only a good athlete, he's a good person, and he seems like a good enough guy where I don't mind that my students really love him a lot. And ironically, this kills me to tell you this, my favorite color is actually purple. So that as someone whose team is the Purple Parrots, that I unfortunately have to admit my favorite color is purple.
Yeah, I bet you were pretty sad when you noticed that there was already a Purple Parrots or a purple team coming into the league, right?
Yeah, I was astounded by the amount of people who already have stuff made with their logo like you do. That's just beyond impressive. But I'm gonna have to find some Springfield Wildcats gear to represent myself at the draft. That's probably
the thing about mine is it was pretty easy. I mean, I know you're a 90s kid too, so growing up I used to watch Legends of the Hidden Temple. So they had all those teams on there, and Purple Parrots were one of them. And just like you, my favorite color, my second favorite color is purple. My favorite color is blue. But I like purple too. So I'm looking on trying to get a creative team, and that's the first thing that came to mind was let me see if I could get one of these teams from the show, because I found this website that had the shirts and the sweaters and everything with the logos on them. I think it's called mypartyshirt.com or mypartytshirt.com, something like that. And they had all the stuff there. So I'm like, which one should I pick? And, I just picked the Purple Parrots, and I got the shirt. And the hat is actually made. I made this at Lids, customized this. So that's something you could do too if you wanted to. But this is just a random logo that I found, and I had them just change the colors to purple and, put the parrots on the back. So it is something. It's something when you're dedicated to your team.
You go.
But
I actually just answered. I just answered this Google form, by the way. So if you go to responses at the top and click on it, you'll actually be able to see all my my answers should show up there in a second once it loads.
Cool.
There. So you get to know the answers ahead of time.
Here. Yeah, awesome. Well, that's cool. So and then the next question was, what is the other hobby besides fantasy football? So you said collecting autographs and sports cards.
Yeah. So I've been
a little bit about that.
Yeah, I've been an avid collector for a long time. Cardinal FC GM, now disgraced former GM Robert Mason. I collect with him a lot, and we before the pandemic hit, we used to go to a lot of shows, and I kind of collect a variety of things from different sports, and even like in entertainment and history. I try to kind of collect a variety of things, whether it's cards or memorabilia or photos. I try to collect a lot of that kind of stuff. That's a hobby that's stemmed for, I think, quite some time. And I think that really has helped me because I have, that has introduced me to sports and helped me understand, for someone who's not an athlete, for me to like kind of connect with sports a little bit more effectively for a long portion of my life. I always tell people I religiously follow hockey, but with basketball, football, and baseball, I follow those sports enough where I know what's going on. I can talk about them. I keep up with the news and everything about those sports and all that stuff. But like, if you're going to tell me the guy who's selected 17th in the NFL draft, if what do I think of him? I'm not going to be able to tell you that much, but I've been collecting for, probably at least 20, 25 years. So it's been the big hobby I have for sure.
Oh, wow. 20, 25 years. That's pretty good. Yeah.
I gotta be. Yeah. It's gotta be.
I used to try to do things like that too, but I just would go like on and off. Like when I was little, I used to collect Pokemon cards. I stopped doing that for a while. I went back to that. That's really the only thing I think I collected. I tried like, sports cards, but I just couldn't get into it much. But that's really cool though. That's really awesome to have a hobby like that to keep you busy.
Yeah, well, when the pandemic hit, everything went crazy. So now everything, of course, is crazy priced, and everything is expensive, and everything's in high demand. So the big thing that I talk about with Bob and my cousin Andy a lot about is the last show we went to before the pandemic hit, which was November of 2019. And I believe Bob was even there. There was a vendor who had some autographed cards, and I looked and I said, "Ooh, that card right there is a pretty good price." The guy's asking $160. I tried to talk him down, and he's like, "Well, it's numbered, and I haven't seen this card, and blah 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 blah." And I was like, "All right, $160 it is." Well, the card was signed by Kobe Bryant, and I mean, 2 months later, 2.5 months later, unfortunately, with everything that happened, I mean, it sucks in the hobby when someone when someone dies, and then you see the product go up, and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I got this autograph, but at what cost? I have to be happy about it. So so yeah, it's a crazy hobby. It's nuts. But it's fun, and it connects you to a lot of people and kind of brings back parts of your childhood with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next question says, number the players from 1 to 5, starting with the most likely to win MVP for 2020 NFL season. So we got Patrick Mahomes, Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, Josh Allen, and Aaron Rodgers. So your answer
so I should start off here. I misread the question, and it's most likely to win the MVP for the NFL. Not who do I think most likely for fantasy for the NFL. Who's the most likely to win it? I think everyone's talking about Aaron Rodgers, so he really probably should be first. But I don't know. I think because of my other league, my first pick, I like the 3rd or the 4th overall pick, and I was gifted. I didn't realize how gifted I was at the time, but I was gifted Dalvin Cook, and that proved to be huge for me. And I mean, he just had a monster season. So I think he deserves a hearty amount of recognition, but I really think in the end, it's just going to be down to Rodgers and Mahomes, just because they're Aaron Rodgers and Mahomes.
No, I totally agree. Like, most of the time, like, regular MVP is usually a quarterback, but I mean, in fantasy football, you rarely even see like anybody other than a quarterback get MVP for fantasy season 2. I mean, those guys like Dalvin Cook, like Henry, those big time like running backs, I put them in there because they're big time players, but they also had, Dalvin Cook missed a couple games. Derrick Henry had a couple games where he didn't, really do much because they just stopped the run. So you got to kind of just really in overall, I think that, Rodgers is probably the favorite there. And as for the next question, you put Dalvin Cook for fantasy MVP. So is that who you wanted to stick with too there, or did you want to?
I really think so. I just think because, and especially with fantasy, if you're really going to go based off who's getting you the most points. There's no reason that anyone who's taken like 6th overall, 7th overall, 8th overall, there's no reason that any of those players should be taken above Patrick Mahomes, right? Because the guy racks up a ton of points. But the whole thing is with quarterback in fantasy, like you can get a guy who goes like the 7th round who ends up being like a solid QB1, QB2 kind of guy. So to me, like in fantasy, quarterbacks don't get the respect they probably should because there's so many that rack up so many points. And like, if you can at least draft a decent quarterback in like the 5th or 6th round, you're fine. So I don't know. I always have just had the firm belief. I think this was instilled in me by my cousins that when I first got into fantasy football, I said, all right, how do I draft? What do I need to know? And they pretty much said, if you're in the 1st round, 9 times out of 10, you probably should take a running back because those are the guys who are going to get you a bunch of points. And you, after the 2nd or 3rd round, it's pretty much a crapshoot for a running back. So you might as well take a running back in your 1st round, which is what kind of doomed me this year is because I took a running back in rounds 1 and 2 to try and solidify that position for myself. But it just, it depends. It's all luck in the end. So that's why I just felt like Dalvin Cook, he just was so just like consistent. And I don't know who had him in our league. Do you remember?
You said Dalvin Cook?
Yeah.
It was the Gorons had him. And it was funny because, every year, like for the last couple years, this person that owns this team, I don't want to really say their name because, who knows if they want to be added to this podcast or not. But the person that owns the Gorons, they don't show up to the draft consistently for the last couple years. And every time they don't show up, we draft a team for them. And I'm not going to lie. Okay. We gave him Dalvin Cook because there was like question marks like surrounding Dalvin Cook this year at the start of the season with his contract and all that stuff. Same thing with Alvin Kamara, but it worked out for him because Dalvin Cook ended up being one of the top running backs, and to get him where he got him was not, that bad either. But it was just funny. I just wanted to mention that really briefly. So, but I totally agree with you, like on all your points that you're making about the fantasy MVP for like, football, NFL, as well as like for fantasy wise. You just, I was looking at Rodgers' numbers and they're just insane. Like he has 47 passing TDs and only like 4 or 5 interceptions this year. And he had 3 rushing TDs on top of that too. So that was like 50 total TDs. And the guy next to him, like was believe it or not, Josh Allen. He had 4,500 passing yards. He had 43 touchdowns, I think, and passing, and then he had like 9 rushing touchdowns. So the rushing was there for Josh Allen more than it was for Aaron Rodgers, but honestly, that season for Rodgers was just a lot better because it was basically like a big, like, screw you to everybody who doubted him.
Yeah,
so,
I think too, as a Bears fan, and I think you can relate, I don't know why we keep getting fooled into this every single season that like for some reason Aaron Rodgers is just going to stop being Aaron Rodgers. Like I don't understand like why we keep every year people are like, oh, this is it. The Packers are going to be garbage this year. And then they finish like, like 12-4 or 13-3. And we go, oh yeah, no, that makes sense. And it's like, well, what do you mean it makes sense? You were all saying he wasn't going to be good last time. So I don't know. You gotta give it. That's the thing is too, as a Bears fan, it's like, I'm a Bears fan, but I give credit where credit's due. The man is a monster. He's say what you will about Brett Favre. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is just, he's earned his place among, Brett Favre and Bart Starr and all those names in Green Bay. So I just, give him the, as much as it kills me, give him the MVP.
The credit when credit's due. Yeah, I mean that's exactly what I said in my last podcast. The guy is like, he's talented and there's no denying it. You got to give credit where credit's due, and this dude has been consistent his whole career, and it sucks. It's painful when you're a Bears fan growing up all these years and not being able to get one elite quarterback in the league, one franchise quarterback, let alone 2, right after another. Favre followed by Aaron Rodgers. Like
Yeah.
Rodgers sat on a bench for 2 years with Favre there, and watched him for 2 years. So there's no, there's a similar, they're similar like to each other in a sense, like kind of in a way Rodgers learned from him. I mean, there's just nothing to it. But when you don't have one quarterback, like one franchise guy there, it's hard, man, like to do anything as a franchise.
Yeah.
But well, that concludes the questionnaire section for this topic here, and that was really awesome. Great great words, conversation and whatnot. I'm really glad that we did that. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about was actually, I think that we're just gonna go right into the free agents. We talked. I did tell you about the free agent landing spots that I wanted to talk about here.
Yep.
So, and the reason why I want to do that is because there are a lot of big free agents out there in the market. We're not going to talk about every single one that's out there, but I have a list that I wanted to just run by you really quick, and kind of just want to see if you could just pick out maybe like one or two guys from the list. So for the quarterbacks here, I'll just read like the top 5 free agents for the quarterback. So we got Dak Prescott, we got Phillip Rivers, Mitchell Trubisky, Jameis Winston, and Cam Newton. So if you want, you can just pick one guy out of those and just maybe talk about, where you think they're going to land. You don't have to go by. So we're not going to get too deep into this as far as like salary caps and all that stuff. Like,
Sure.
We don't need to do any of that. I just want to kind of get maybe your perspective on where they could land, and maybe somewhere that, might be good for fantasy purposes as well. So.
Sure. Oh man. Well, of the quarterbacks, I know it's enticing to pick Dak, but I mean, if you ask me, I think he stays in Dallas. I don't know how they let him go. I just think he's proven that he's a capable enough quarterback for high end stuff, and he plays well. I know he had an injury this year, but I don't know. I don't know how they let him go, especially when they already have Zeke there. I think they obviously want to make sure they have a solid core, and I don't know. I don't know how if you get rid of Dak, what is your next best option? Because I think that's how it goes in football. I mean, it goes in all sports like that, but especially football. If you get rid of a guy, you have to look and go, well, is there something better for us out there or that we already have? And I don't know what, not to insult the wonderful Phillip Rivers, but I just don't know in the free agency market who you're going to get that you're going to say, oh no, that's at least equal or even better to what we have in Dak. And no, I think Dak Prescott easily stays with the Cowboys. That's at least my prediction, but free agency is weird.
Yeah, no, it's a good prediction. I don't really see him going anywhere else either. Like, I thought about it before, and I'm like, as a Bears fan, I really would love to see Dak in a Bears uniform, but we have other things that we need to address first before we could even think about signing a free agent like that. I mean, we didn't pay Allen Robinson. He might walk. So we have a ton of issues to deal with. But yeah, I think that ultimately he probably will end up staying in Dallas because Andy Dalton, who's the backup, only signed for a year. So he might be gone as well. So they're probably not going to be left with any other option, to be honest. The one that I was thinking about was Jameis Winston. It's pretty interesting because it seems like, New Orleans signed him for a year. It doesn't seem like they're going to want to keep him. I think that they found their quarterback to take Drew Brees over, which is Taysom Hill. I mean, I honestly don't see how they couldn't give Taysom Hill a chance after what he did this season when Brees was injured. So Winston, to me, a good landing spot would be maybe like Atlanta, maybe to take over the reins for Matt Ryan when Matt Ryan retires. Never know with Matt Ryan, he could end up being there for another 2-3 years, maybe more, but he is kind of, to me, at the later years of his career already. So I can see somebody like Jameis Winston, a young quarterback, going, there to kind of just play behind him and learn from him, kind of like what, Rodgers did with Favre. I mean,
Right.
it's a good thing to do. And I think that's what his main purpose was to go to New Orleans for too, is to learn behind Drew Brees. But
Sure.
it didn't seem like Peyton wanted to really have Winston there long term. So
I think there's a lot of teams that I think need to seriously like look at. I'm interested to see what Indianapolis does. I think they're kind of in a weird tailspin.
Yeah.
I think what's going to be interesting, and I know that this is a whole nother subject, but like what happens with Carson Wentz in Philadelphia, like that's going to be something to keep an eye on. And
I mean, he's not a free agent, but yeah, it's interesting to see what they're going to do, because you had a rookie come in and just light it up. The defense kind of was the problem when Hurts was in there, but he was doing really well for them and running that offense great. And even Miles Sanders started doing good with him in there too. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. See if they keep him, let him go, trade him. It's going to be definitely
right. And because I kind of use like my knowledge with hockey as to something I always wonder with football. And I know obviously two different sports that operate in two different ways, but I think you have to kind of wait and see how the trade market plays out, because if Wentz gets moved, if Deshaun Watson, I mean, that's also what I look at is, would I rather give up pieces and get Watson, or do I just hit free agency and get someone else? Because I mean, again, other than Dak, is there any QB on the market that I would say, well, I would rather have this guy for cheaper without giving up the pieces than have Deshaun Watson? Like, I don't know if that's the case, especially if you're a team really looking to make an impact there. So yeah, I don't know.
I don't believe so. If anything, like the other quarterback that's out there that is worth maybe signing, and I know he had a pretty disappointing season, but I think Cam Newton is worth mentioning. I mean, he still has the rushing ability, and I have no idea what happened to his passing this year, because it was very, very bad. But if he can get that back and find that, to be honest, if he goes somewhere with better receivers or better offensive, pass catchers, he'll probably be a lot better. I mean, who did New England have? They had all these nobodies over there. N'Keal Harry, Edelman got injured. Once Edelman was gone, the pass game was not there. So maybe if he just goes to somewhere else, like I said, who has better pass catchers, I think that he could be a lot better next year. Moving on to the receivers. So the top 5 receivers list that I found, we have Allen Robinson, Chris Godwin, Juju Smith-Schuster, Kenny Galladay, and AJ Green. So which one out of those guys would you like to talk about?
Oh man, well, as a Bears fan, I got to go with Robinson. I mean, I know the Bears have, I know we can't go into the in depth about it like you mentioned, but I know they have a salary cap nightmare ahead of them. But like, that's, if there's, in my opinion, if there's 3 guys on the Bears that you have to like look at and say, this is a part of what we need to have in order to be a contender, I feel like Robinson has to be one of them, right? I mean, you're not going to get much better in terms of having a wide receiver on the open market. And I don't know. I want him to stay with the Bears, being a Bears fan, but I just don't see it happening. And I always think of like teams who really desperately could use a guy like that and just like really solidify like taking that next step forward, and then like, again, like you said, without thinking of salary cap stuff, that's a little bit difficult. But like you think then if Chris Godwin leaves Tampa Bay, then does Tampa Bay say, well, screw it, we're just going to get Robinson and just try and make that work with the cap?
It's something to think about.
I'm a big Kyler Murray fan. Do you think, does Arizona say, Christian Kirk isn't really cutting it? Like, as I have found out from owning him for fantasy for 2 years in a row, like, do you then say, let's get a guy like this to just be a beast to connect with? Or, I don't know. Does Miami look at it and say, hey, we need someone for Tua to pass to. And if the Dolphins, I know there was a rumor about a Tua for Watson swap. I mean, Watson and AR, that could be lethal. So
no, yeah, I would love to see that in Chicago, but it's probably not going to happen. But that is the one guy that the Bears should hold on to, but it's just hard to see him staying right now. I mean, they've done him wrong for a while now, and it's like they just didn't seem like they wanted to pay him the money. So I can't see a scenario where he's going to end up staying here in Chicago. There's going to be a lot of teams out there that are going to be in need of a good elite receiver. And Robinson still, honestly, in my opinion, he hasn't even hit his peak yet, where he's going to be like great. So somebody's going to pay for him, and they're going to be really, really happy with that result.
There's actually one more guy, really quick, if you don't mind. I think really quick, I just want to cover is Juju. And that's simply because what I keep forgetting is now that, Pittsburgh has Claypool and Johnson, I don't know if they're going to want to make room for him. So I feel like for fantasy, that's a guy who I've always tried to say, you want to have a number one running back on your team, but you have to have at least one top end decent wide receiver. That's what I try to aim for every year. And if he gets a new team and he can at least be with a decent quarterback, I mean, I don't know how Juju isn't one of the top 5 wide receivers that you'd want to at least consider taking, just because he could be a real threat with a new quarterback.
See, the thing about Juju to me, though, is that I felt like he always played better, and a lot of people feel this way too, that he played better with A.J. Brown as the number one guy, or not A.J. Brown, I'm sorry, Antonio Brown, getting my Browns mixed up. Antonio Brown as the number one guy there, Juju played better with him there. When Antonio Brown left, Juju was not the guy. And with Deontay Johnson being there now, he's the guy for Big Ben. Now, Big Ben is probably close to retiring now as well, so they're going to have trouble trying to find somebody to take his spot because, Mason Rudolph is not the answer. But with Juju being on the market now, it would be nice to see a Juju and Allen Robinson pairing in Chicago. I mean, I'm going to just throw that out there. We haven't even signed Allen Robinson yet, but imagine those two guys together, Allen Robinson and Juju. And if not, they're both on the free agent market right now. Maybe they sign somewhere else on a different team. If the Dolphins can end up pulling that Tua trade through for Watson, and then they go ahead and they sign Allen Robinson and Juju, watch out, man. Watch out for Miami. But, yeah. So on to the running backs. So the top running backs here, we have Aaron Jones, Kenyon Drake, Todd Gurley, Chris Carson, and Phillip Lindsay. Which one did you want to talk about there?
Man, I'm trying to think here. I kind of like, I know he's not the first one you mentioned, but I like Chris Carson. I always thought from a fantasy standpoint, I had him a couple seasons ago. I really liked him. And I think that would be an interesting to see if he wouldn't leave Seattle, as much as that would, I think, be a weird look. I don't know. I think Chris Carson could be an interesting person to check out. And then I'm trying to think of, again, I know it's hard to not think of cap space, but you have to consider it in some regards. But yeah, I don't know. When I think of a team that probably is going to have cap space and probably could use a big player, like the Bengals or Washington or are they going to pay that kind of money for a guy like him to come in, and do they even need him? But I don't know. I like Chris Carson. I think he's a good player, but I don't know where he could go. That would be an interesting thing to look at.
Yeah, I have no idea who's in the market right now to actually sign running backs, but he's been pretty good when he's been in there. He's had some kind of some injury concerns over the last couple of years, but when he's on the field though, he's the guy. And there was a report out there for next season that, Pete Carroll and Seattle actually is going to want to run the ball more. If not, letting Russell Wilson cook all of the beginning of the season did not work for them, apparently. I mean, it really did in the end, but I guess the coaches think otherwise. But they want to run the ball more. And I don't see how that's going to be an option without signing Chris Carson there. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be really interesting offseason, to say the least. So the tight ends that we had out there, the top 5. So we have Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, Gerald Everett, who is the Los Angeles Rams backup tight end to Higbee, Rob Gronkowski, and Jared Cook. So which one of those guys did you want to touch base on?
I mean, I think the obvious talk would be Hunter Henry, right? I mean, to see where he's going to go. I mean, I think too with the tight ends. I mean, Jared Cook, Gronk, you look at a lot of those guys in that list and they're fine. But I think if you're in the market for like the best you can, and he's 26, I mean, you gotta try and get Hunter Henry. Now where he would go, that would be a whole nother story.
Yeah, he's a top tight end probably out there in the market, definitely.
Easily.
Somebody like that, like honestly, I've always believed that ever since he came into the league, he was held back by Antonio Gates, who was still kind of fantasy relevant and for the Chargers and whatnot. But he's always had the potential to be like a top 5 tight end out there. So where he lands is going to be very important for fantasy purposes, but I have no idea really who is kind of in the market for one. Off the top of my head, in all honesty, like the only one that really comes to my mind right now would be like the Cardinals, because they had Arnold, who it didn't seem like they really trusted that much this year, and Hunter Henry could open up the field for them. It could take off pressure from DeAndre Hopkins too, because they're like triple covering him every chance they get. So if they can add another weapon into that offense, that might look pretty good.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, that concludes that section of this topic. That was really great to talk to somebody about the stuff like that, and I appreciate the talk there as well. Lots of free agent moving on the moves this year, though, definitely. So it's going to be really interesting to keep an eye on that, see where people go, where they end up, what teams they go to, and talk about it as well on a future podcast. So the final thing that I wanted to do for this podcast was going to be the final thing I wanted to do was going to be the perfect draft by Fantasy Pros. So if you're not familiar with Fantasy Pros, it's just a website that was developed to basically talk about all fantasy sports. It's not just football, it's basketball, hockey, soccer, pretty much any sport you could think of. And they have stats up there for players. They have rankings. They have lots of topics that they talk about and discuss. But they have this thing called the perfect draft. So I'm going to share my screen. Well, actually, I think you should have the ability to share your screen with me. Does it give you that option?
It does, yeah.
Okay, so share your screen with me, and then just go to Google and type in Fantasy Pros Perfect Draft.
Okay, let's check
it
out. I'm going to do that before I share my screen.
No problem. And then basically, this is something that I did on my podcast live the other day, and my score, which is the score that no pressure. Okay, that's the first thing I want to say. It's no pressure at all. The score that I am going to put out there for my guests to try to beat is 2509. So 2,509 points, 0.92. So that was my score on here. And basically the way that this works they the way that they're ranking like people and players and the way that they're giving points out is based on like ADP. So for instance, if you know Calvin Ridley finished like as a top like 3 wide receiver for the season for fantasy, but he was drafted in like the 5th round. If you get Calvin Ridley like in the 5th or the 6th round, then that's great value there. The same thing with Diggs. So Diggs was like a 6th round pick. He finished like as the 2nd wide receiver. So if you get Diggs where his ADP is in like the 6th or the 7th round, then they give you more points for that. The one thing that I wanted to mention briefly was that I only drafted 1 defense. I actually got like minus points for not having like more than 1 defense because I had the defense on a bye where it didn't give me any points. But there's other stuff that goes into this too, where it kind of just gives you like points for other things too. So you could end up only having 1 defense and still do really well. So it really just depends.
All right, let's see. I created an account. Now, what draft slot do you want me to have?
Okay, so the draft spot that I did was 7 because that's where I drafted in our league. So if you want to draft from the same spot that you drafted in our league, then that's fine. Or if you want to do 7th spot, then it's up to you.
Did I draft 2nd or 3rd in our league?
I think you were 3rd, if I'm not mistaken.
We'll go with 3rd. We'll go with 3rd to be safe. All right, let's see. This is probably not going to go well because as I've pretty much proven.
Okay, the one thing I want to tell you really quickly, there's a minute on the clock for each pick. So you can give an explanation if you want of why you picked that guy, but you only have a minute to actually pick.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah. All right. So you're on the clock.
All right. And this is just going based off of this season or what?
This past season, yes. Mm-hmm.
This past season. Well, if I know based on this past season and everything I just talked up about him, I'm probably going to have to go Dalvin Cook just because I just talked him up. So, because I made the fatal mistake of getting Zeke last time, and I know how that went. And I'm not getting Joe Mixon because you, like me, we both made that mistake, and I'm not going to do that.
Oh my goodness, man! It's just funny because like Bob always talks about every year, like how he can't see how Mixon is like always like a top draft pick, and I'm like, well, he produces when he's in there, but this year, like, I'm totally off Mixon now. There's no way that I'm ever gonna try to draft him.
Right. To me,
what happened.
It's to me like AJ Green is. I don't know how I can ever take him again and be like, oh no, he's worth like a top 5 pick. Like I don't. I can't do that anymore.
AJ Green is washed, to be honest. Like in my opinion, like T Higgins just kind of took over that spot already, and he was only a rookie this past season. So,
all right. So far I have Pat Mahomes, Dalvin Cook, Allen Robinson. God, if this could have been my draft this past year, I would have been rolling in dough already. But that just doesn't go the way I want it to.
It's really hard to know when to take a quarterback. Like for the viewers out there, our league is 2 quarterback league. So to get Pat Mahomes where he got Pat Mahomes in the 2nd round is great value for us because we have guys taking quarterbacks in the 1st round at times only because we start 2 quarterbacks. And our quarterbacks get us, the ones that are really great, they get us a lot of points, like 50, maybe even more. So when you take a quarterback that high, it's kind of normal for us in our league because we start 2.
Yeah.
So we have so far he has Pat Mahomes, Dalvin Cook, Allen Robinson, and DK Metcalf. It's looking pretty good. Did you get any applause yet for any of the picks that you had?
I didn't, and that terrifies me.
Sometimes they applaud you when you're picking like guys based on their ADP and where you get them. So
I'm trying to fill out a roster like I normally would if we were playing, and that's what terrifies me yet again.
So right here, it looks like you might try to maybe get your 3rd receiver, maybe a tight end.
I was thinking a tight end. So here's what I'm going to say. you have been an advocate in our league for one tight end for the longest time now. And as much as it's going to pain Bob to hear this, I cannot help but agree just because there's like 5 good tight ends in the league. Like,
Yep.
and then everyone else is just kind of garbage. So I feel like that's just the way it just is kind of trending, and that's where you need to go. Oh my God, this is terrible. This is so hard.
I mean, you keep in mind, like, look at the clock every now and then. You're making your picks when you had maybe like 30 or 40 seconds left on the clock still. So you still have a little more time on each pick.
I panic easily, Chuck, in drafting, and that's probably why I get screwed every time we play, is because I get nervous when I see a whole list of people. You know what I mean?
So keep these guys in mind really quickly. Okay, you have 40 seconds, so you have a lot of time. Justin Jefferson was a late round pick, and he finished really well. James Robinson was a late round pick. He finished really well. I think you might be able to search for guys at the top as well if you needed to. Other guys, if you go to my website, you can see the list for the top guys in each.
God, he's plugging his website to help me out here. That's always a bad sign for me that I'm doing really poorly. Is I need outside help here to.
Well, you have 15 seconds left.
You know what I'm doing? You know what I'm doing? I'm going rogue, and I'm getting Aaron Rodgers, and I'm gonna get. Because I'm going to... There we go. There was a cheer. I got an applaud on that one.
Okay.
All right, I'm happy with that. Simply because the time will come when I would want to trade him for something better, because that's usually how my season goes.
Right. Well, Justin Jefferson is there too at 132.
So if you're going to just tell me, I'm just going to take him. I'm not gonna complain. There's another cheer. All right, I'll take that.
There you go. It's hard to pass up on a guy that had an ADP of 132 when he finished the year as like a top 5 receiver. So
right. And I feel like our league too, it just takes one person to do something absolutely silly and just throw everything through a loop. Because like all of a sudden, like you'll be in like round 10 and someone takes the defense and you're like, oh God, wait, should I be taking that now? Is that what I'm supposed to be doing? And then I just panic, and then
that is exactly what happens every year though. Yeah, it's like, oh, quarterbacks are coming off the board now, let me grab one. Exactly. But that's the thing, like I had that mentality this year, like I'm gonna wait on a quarterback, I'm gonna wait. But then I'm like, well, I want at least one great quarterback because we have a 2 quarterback league. So that's why I think I ended up getting Kyler Murray in the 4th round. And I was happy with that because he finished really good. So that wasn't bad. If you can at least get a top, 5 quarterback to start your roster, you're in good shape. But things are different when you start 2 quarterbacks. I mean, your draft strategy changes completely. So.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm going based on and it's again, pretty blatant as to how I play in our league. I'm going based on people I see who I go, oh, I don't think he's washed up anymore. I don't think he's a garbage player. I think people still talk about him because that's my biggest part where I struggle with is what is like right now. I feel like it's too early to take defense.
I think it's super early, to be honest. Like with all the defenses that are out there, you can literally get the same defense, like no matter where you draft. Like defenses in our league especially like get you maybe like 5 or 6 points.
Yeah.
So you could wait on defense until the very end.
Yeah, and there were guys like I had highly ranked when we were starting to draft that I really wanted. Like I'm assuming like certain people here are no longer available that I really wanted. And like certain guys I remember during the season had really good like moments. I'm just gonna say Curtis Samuel.
I did see one guy in the running back tab that was still there that I talked about. So if you remember who that was, he still might be out there.
Oh God, I don't remember, Chuck. I thought like half these guys.
You passed them up.
Was it him? I don't remember. Or was it him? I don't remember. You can't tell me.
I
You
can't
just have
tell
to
you.
you just have to let me fail at this on my own. That's pretty much my mantra as a teacher is you
I
just have to
did.
let students
I
make the
did.
mistakes.
I did mention him though, as we were talking about guys, and I was mentioning like Justin Jefferson. I put him right up there as well. So I'm telling you, like the list is on my website. If you want to go there and check
No,
it.
I have to do this on my own. I have to do this on my own and figure it out on my own. I have 15 seconds. I guess I should get a running back. Crap, it's ticking. We're just gonna go with. Okay, I understand. 3 seconds. I don't know. Sure, why not? I don't remember. I don't remember.
I don't think that was an applause right there.
And it was definitely not an applaud. It absolutely was not because I clearly panicked. I'm getting a tight end because I know how poorly we need these in this silly game we call fantasy. Sure. Well, you know what? Let's go Jimmy Graham because he got the last touchdown of the Bears season, and that's when
I don't think you took a defense.
I did not. No,
Okay.
I went with
So
the
this is
Saints. I think one of my
last.
leagues I had the Saints, but I know the Rams. I thought, yeah, I'll go Saints. Why not? Who cares?
I think I took the Saints in mine too. And that's what I'm saying. Like you could literally wait to the very end to pick your defense because they're all the same in the end.
Okay, so I'm assuming this is bad.
2,200. Well, it's not. It's not beating my score, but I mean.
What's your score?
2,500.
Oh, look at that. I couldn't do it. I didn't have it in me. 2268.88.
If you want, you can share that to our Facebook page if you wanted to.
Can I really? Oh boy.
Yeah.
And let everybody make fun of me.
And so the one guy that I was gonna mention right now that I was talking about was James Robinson.
Oh, okay.
So he was out there towards the end when you were picking and you took your last like running back off the board. He was still out there, but his ADP was like basically like undrafted. Like he was an undrafted rookie coming in. He got all the work for Jacksonville, and he completely dominated. He finished like the year as like the number 5 or 6 like overall running back, and he was undrafted. Like I picked him up in the beginning of the season off the waiver wire, and I traded him to another team, the Grease Lightning, and I ended up getting him back in a trade when I gave Grease Lightning. What did I give him? Well, I gave him somebody else back, and I got him back in a trade. I think I gave him Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Derek Carr, and he gave me back James Robinson. And this was before James Robinson like kind of lit it up. But yeah, I picked him up off the waiver wire, so he's a good pick. But yeah, that was the perfect draft by the Fantasy Pros. That's a cool thing that you know that's out there for everybody to try and to see if they can beat my 2,500 score. There's something I'm probably gonna do this like maybe at least one more time to see if I can beat that score. But the cool thing about that is that the Fantasy Pros, they're actually doing a contest where if you can beat all 3 of their scores, that you get entered in a contest to win some cool prizes.
So there you go. Very cool.
You can literally do that as many times as you wanted to try to beat it. But yeah, well that was pretty much it for today. There was one other final topic I wanted to do, but it's not really something that we have time for today. But overall, like I thought this went really well, and I really, really want to just thank you again for joining me, and I really appreciate your time. And I hope that we can do this again very soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it'll be an interesting NFL off season, and you know, as the GM of the Springfield Wildcats, I'm going to have to start planning for next year, and knowing how poorly I have done in 2 of my 3 seasons, I'm probably going to have to start prepping yesterday. So I'm going to have to get up on that.
Now, one final thing I wanted to mention, though, really quick. I'm going to just share my screen one more time with you.
Yep.
So, let me see. Get this out of my way. So, right here, if you go to the website, and and you go to media content and you hit forms. On this page right here, you will see this form that says rule changes. So what I wanted you all to do, you yourself, and then all the other people that come back in the league, who knows who's leaving and who's coming back as of now. But I created this document through Google Forms, and it's just a voting sheet. So you guys could vote on the new rules that I'm trying to implement for next season.
Very cool. Yeah.
So if you want to just check that out and just fill it out, and then I'll try to see if everybody else can do that as well, and we'll get the ball rolling and see if we can get those new rules implemented for next season.
I see there's no option to have 3 tight ends for the upcoming season. That's interesting.
That's sad, right? Yeah, that's pretty sad. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. I think we can live with that.
All right, man. Well, I really appreciate your time again. Thank you for joining me, and we'll talk again sometime soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So that's going to conclude it for today. I am Chuck, owner of the Purple Parrots, and this is the second podcast that we ever completed, and I'm very happy about that. Thank you again for Tony for joining me on this podcast experience for the second time and being my first guest ever on this podcast. I am truly grateful for having somebody that took part in this with me. Until next time, guys, thank you so much. Have a great one.